All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for the ACA Small Business Boot Camp and Resource Collective. Got a great session today. I want to start by introducing myself. I'm Robert Theobald, the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services for the Arizona Commerce Authority. I'm glad to be here today hosting. I want to thank our community partners for all the support and content they've given to us for this Boot Camp and Resource Collective. We could not do it without them. So the Small Business Boot Camp and Resource Collective is designed to help small businesses that are less than 20 employees come through the COVID crisis and return stronger. However, if you're larger than 20, you're more than welcome to be here, and we're glad to have you on this call. It's a statewide initiative to help, supported by our community partners, and it's a daily boot camp that we're going to continue on through the end of July and include the information in our Resource Collective. It's Monday through Fridays, 9 to 10 a.m. Then we've got sessions on PPP, loan forgiveness guidance, on return stronger, marketing, and so forth to help boost your business. You can find more details at azcommerce.com/smallbusinessbootcamp. All the previous sessions have been recorded and posted, so you can go back and watch those different sessions at your convenience. And if you rewatch ones you may have been on, I want to refresh that information. We are also updating our Resource Collective with new material every time as we get new updates. It's a great piece with many different resources for small businesses to help them through this time. So this week's sessions, yesterday we had a great session from Cushman & Wakefield on top 6 workplace safety guidelines. Today we've got Target's best tips for navigating a reopen. I'm really excited about this session that we have today and the tools that Target has created for small businesses. Wednesday is going to be navigating online orders in the food industry. Thursday, how to boost sales and expand your client base. And Friday, grow your business with eBay in a marketing session. So some quick updates. We still have a lot of money remaining on PPP. Again, if you're waiting for your lender to get back with you, please find, you may want to look at another one. If you're still trying to get that loan and it's moving slow. The PPP program ends June 30th. And that is the date that the lenders have to get your information, your application keyed into the SBA system. And so with that in mind and the process that it takes with lenders, many of the lenders may be ending the program or the application process through them by the end of the week. So you really want to take a look at that if it's something you're still looking to do. However, the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, has reopened, and you can apply for that through the SBA's website directly. If that's a loan you're looking at doing, or if you applied previously, you can contact the SBA customer service number to find out where your loan is at. We do want to reiterate some of the programs that we have available for small businesses. Our Small Business Services Unit can help navigate most current developments, banking opportunities, local banking contacts, working with the SBA and the Small Business Development Centers. I want to thank the Small Business Development Centers for all that they do. They're a great resource and partner of ours. Our Workforce Division can help with training, with helping with employees, finding employees, and so forth. It's a great program. And our Arizona MEP, Manufacturing Extension Partnership, is a top-notch program for manufacturers to help you grow and be stronger. Just a quick reminder to look at the Arizona Together website, the state's website for COVID-19 information and resources. Great resource for everybody. And then this is a list of the many guides that we have on our Resource Collective. These guides are for helping to reopen or guide you through the COVID crisis. Covers construction, salons, restaurants, retail, a lot of different resources to help support your small business as you return to work and try to grow out of this corona pandemic. You can also stay informed on all the different COVID business resources and opportunities at azcommerce.com/COVID-19. So today, we're honored to have Kent Wilson, the Director of Government Relations for Target Corporation. we're really excited to have Kent with us and to share as the information that he has. I just want to say that I'm excited about this because it's not often you have a company that is a retailer create stuff for small businesses. And the stuff that Kent is going to share with us is exciting because it is designed to help small business owners. So we're really grateful for that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and turn the time over to Kent so he can do his introduction and share his information.
Great. Okay, let's see if we get it going here. Okay, how are we looking?
Good.
All right. Now that I'm not at the front page, of course. There we go. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I am going to walk through a few slides, and then we'll have an opportunity for ample time for question and answers if anyone has any. So just very quickly, I wanted to give a brief introduction. I assume most people on the call know Target, but in the event that you don't, we're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We've got about 1,900 stores in all 50 states, 350,000 team members, and then about 75% of the US population lives within 10 miles of a Target store. And every year we also give 5% of our pre-tax profits to communities that we serve. So just quickly before I get into a little bit more of the details, I just wanted to say thanks again to the Arizona Commerce Authority. This resource collective is something that I haven't seen, frankly, any other states do. And I work in a 10-state region in the Pacific Northwest and the Southwest and Mountain West. And it's a really impressive body of work to help. And so I'm glad that we could be here today to present. So in January, our corporate team pulled together a coronavirus cross-functional task force. And I will tell you at that time, we largely thought the impact was going to be to our supply chain, right? So it was in Asia for the most part. That's where we sourced a lot of goods. And so that was the context with which we were looking at the coronavirus. Obviously, things changed, and things changed very quickly as it spread outside of China and to the rest of the world. And so, as an essential business, we have had the ability to remain open throughout the pandemic. And I think largely the reason that we were able to stay open is largely because of our grocery business, but also hardware and some other things that were considered essential by a lot of state and local governments at the beginning of the pandemic. I will tell you, we've learned a great deal over the past several months. It hasn't been easy at times. And I think, we have not gotten everything right. It's been a trial and error process, but we have been learning, we have been testing, we have been iterating to try and understand, what makes our team members feel safe, what makes our guests feel safe. And we're trying to make adjustments on the fly as things seemingly change every day. And one thing I'll just say is sometimes you'll need help. And I can tell you from our perspective, I mean, even with a large company that has a lot of resources behind it, there are times when we'll read a local order and an order from a state and local government that says you need to do this, this, and this, and we go, well, I'm not sure exactly what that means. So one tip that I think that we have really utilized a lot during this crisis is to reach out to local government, and they can, and many times, be helpful. So for instance, we had a situation in a different county in Arizona, and there was some specific language and we didn't know exactly what it means. So we reached out to the local health department and they said, no, we see how you read it that way, but this is actually how we are interpreting it, and this is our intent. So I would keep that in mind, that certainly there are people out there that can help you navigate these things. So as Robert mentioned, as Target's navigated through all this, and we're thinking about what things we can do to help our communities and other small businesses. I mean, the reality is we're all in this together, right? The importance of retail is very much interlocking, and a healthy shopping center and healthy, shopping areas are very important to every retailer. Foot traffic is very critical to small business, large business. And so one of the things that we did as we looked for something that we could give back to the community is to develop a resource called the Safe Retail Guide. And so I'm going to walk through kind of a couple different components of this Safe Retail Guide. I'm not going to go into like a ton of detail about it, but I will tell you, as Robert mentioned, it's up on the ACA, Arizona Commerce Authority website, on the Small Business Bootcamp. We also have it translated in Spanish. So we'll have both English and Spanish versions. It's about 65, 67 pages with a lot of templates and a lot of material. So really this is the plan that we distributed, or this is the plan that we put together that we will share with everyone to help them as they navigate. So I will tell you I think the most important thing that we've learned, and now this may seem, this may seem a little aloof, but we have found that that our guests really, really focus on a safe environment. And so our CEO spoke about this at a conference not long ago, where, in the past, customer traffic is driven by, a product mix and assortment that's interesting, or the best prices, variety, that sort of thing. But the reality is in this day and age that the Best Loyalty Program is providing a safe environment for your team, and then also the shoppers that are visiting your location. So that underlines, I think, everything, that's in the Safe Retail Guide. And we have developed this framework to kind of carry out what we have seen in our, 1,900 stores, which are things that help make our team members safe, and then help make our customers and our guests feel safe. The other thing, I think, the other overarching major thing that we've discovered is that now more than ever, communication is very, very important. So communicating with your employees, your contractors, your vendors, and your shoppers is just critically important. To the degree that you can provide, consistent signage with consistent messaging, right? So things that are easy to read, that are placed at eye level when you walk into the store or throughout the store, are really, really important. I would say another thing is, daily updates, right, to your team, trying to provide as much information as you can to ensure that your team members are feeling comfortable and safe, working in an environment. A lot of times, we've heard things like, well, I signed up to work because I really like dealing with people, so I wanted to work at the customer service desk, or, I really like the kind of the quiet solace of stocking shelves late at night, and I didn't sign up to work in the middle of a pandemic, right? And so, you're going to have team members that feel uncomfortable, so it's really important to communicate with them. And to do everything that you can to make them feel safe. The other thing I would say is that you've got to adjust on the fly. There's just a lot of things that are changing as we learn more about the virus, as we learn more about how to create safe environments, and frankly, as the situation evolves, right? I mean, here in Arizona, we're seeing looks like an uptick in cases. And so at this stage, it's probably going to be a little bit more important to remain as vigilant as possible. And so you've got to be able to try and adapt and to adjust to the changing external environment. And then one other thing that I think is really critical is this idea of imagery or symbolism, or just very outward displays that you are doing everything that you can to keep a safe environment for your customers and for your team. So whether that's consistent signage, visible examples of cleaning, right? So if you visit a Target store now, you'll see every check lane that will have, hand sanitizer or cleaning wipes, or, cleaning bottles, sterilization bottles. After every transaction, a Target team member will clean the belt. So those things where you are demonstrating and showing that that you care about the cleanliness of your facility, I think are really, really important. There was an interesting example. It's that I heard the other day. Someone equated this to after 9/11, the expansion of TSA and airport screening. And we know TSA and airport screening isn't necessarily perfect, but the reality is that when you go to the airport and you see this process, and you see all of the TSA agents, and you see the metal detectors, it does instill, at least in me, and I think it's a very valid point, it does instill a level of confidence that people are paying attention, and that there is a formal process. And so the appearance of it, I think is very, very important. So again, the Safe Retail Guide is our framework that we've created, and SAFE is an acronym. So our learnings, we've kind of consolidated all of our learnings into this framework. So the first is screening, and then access, and then face coverings and personal protective equipment, and then finally enhanced safety measures. And so when you see the Target Safe Retail Guide, you'll see this broken up into these 4 categories. And then within each of these categories will be operational elements. So examples of how you can actually do this at your store level. We have included in that guide blank signage that doesn't have any Target logos or anything, that you're able to use for your own retail locations. So again, it's kind of a ready-made resource where you can post things up of signage that we've been able to create. Again, it's, and I do want to be cautious that we didn't want to call this a best practice, right? Because every business is different. The methods, the uses, and how you interpret this guide is going to be different upon a whole host of different things, right? I mean, a Target retail environment is vastly different than a small, 2,000 square foot jeweler. So obviously, you've got to think and adapt and kind of work through some of the unique challenges or differences that different retail environments present. So again, this is not a best practice, but this is just a lot of the things that we learned. And you consider it kind of a menu of options of things that can help guide your decisions as a retailer. It's yours to, interpret, adapt, and make it work for you. So the one thing I want to say before I get into this too is that we realize that consumers are shopping differently now, right? So I think the National Retail Federation released a survey a couple months ago, not even a couple months ago, obviously probably 6 weeks ago. And then more than 9 in 10 shoppers claim that they've changed their shopping habits. And almost, I think 70% or so said that they are worried about visiting a store. And that 90% or so said that they are bringing hand sanitizer or disinfectant with them when they visit the store to disinfect the shopping cart. So we know it's very important, right? We know it's very important, and we know that kind of working through how to make it safe is very critical. So as I mentioned earlier, I'll dive into this kind of safe retail framework. And then a couple examples of some of the checklists and the signage things that we have. So first, the the S part of safe retail is screening. And so for us, screening means it's very simple. It means we have a little health screening checklist, which is in the guide, for employees to do at home before they get ready to come to work. And so it's simple things like, do you have a temperature today? How are you feeling? Do you have a headache, or are you coughing? Very, very simple things that someone can do at home. And then signs at the front of the store that promote what we call healthy shopping behaviors, right? So if you're not feeling well, don't step foot in the store, please. And then it's largely about kind of creating a culture of personal responsibility, and then also thinking about precaution first. And so, for us, that means if a team member is not feeling well, and if a leader is not feeling well, it's their responsibility to say, I'm not feeling well today. I'm not going to come in. So the degree that you can kind of create that culture of not having to show up to work when you don't feel well, which I think we've all unfortunately done in the past. So I think that's important, is kind of creating that culture of, listen, if you don't feel well, stay home and protect yourself and protect others around you. And I think that's a really important thing. So here's an example, and this is included in the guide as well, which is just a screening guide that says, please don't come in. And then again, just, basic things that we know help combat coronavirus, like washing your hands and don't touching your eyes and nose and mouth and that sort of thing. So this is in the guide and something that you can put up. So the next component of the guide is access. And so access means a couple different things. In this context, it means access to additional pay and benefits for employees. I recognize that a lot of small businesses aren't going to be able to do some of the things that obviously a large company like Target has the resources to do. But to the degree that, you can look at your absentee policy or look at other ways where you might be able to lessen the burden of someone having to take a day off of work because they're not feeling well, I think it's critically important that you do so, because then people can feel like, okay, I'm not really feeling well, so I probably should stay home, at least until I, understand if this is, a long-term sickness or what have you. And then access also to us means special dedicated hours for vulnerable populations. This is one of the things that we did early on. Now, again, not everyone can do this, but to the degree that, you can create special dedicated hours for those with vulnerable populations that can access your stores, I think is really important. I know I've seen a lot of smaller retailers do individual appointment hours, which I think is really great. But again, just creating, an environment that's safe for people to be able to access. And then access to us also means trying to increase the out-of-store options, right? So curbside, delivery, and those sorts of things, even in-store pickup, to the degree that you can do it quickly and get people in and out. So again, just giving people a variety of options. Again, this is not an easy thing to operationalize, particularly if you're a small business and maybe you have 1 or 2 or 3 employees that are just, have a lot of different roles. But if there are ways that you can think out of the box maybe and create some options where you make it easier for people to purchase things without coming into the store, I think it's a valuable thing to do. Let's see here. So this is an example again in the guide of a template that you can use, and you can post this on your door, right? We're reserving the first hour of shopping on Tuesdays for our most vulnerable customers. And so this is something that I think has been received very well by a lot of retailers. And I know my mom, who is elderly and who has a lot of pre-existing conditions, really, really appreciates being able to go into her local store when she feels safe. The other thing, so the F portion of safe retail is face coverings and personal protective equipment. Again, Target, we provide face coverings to all of our team members. And then we require anyone that's stepping foot inside of our store that is serving our store. So a vendor, if the guy from PepsiCo is dropping off, Lay's potato chips, then they'll have to wear a face covering. And then in our case, we actually do have, we have a delivery, a company that is wholly owned by Target called Shipped, which is our same day delivery company. And so it's very similar to Instacart or Uber Eats, but for groceries, not just Target, but actually a lot of other retailers as well. And so we call them Ship Shoppers. And so those Ship Shoppers are required to wear those masks as well. And this seems to be, I think, the kind of the talk of the town here in Arizona. Certainly, I think, there's a lot of focus on masks. Honestly, I'm not a scientist. I can't really speak to the efficacy of whether masks work or not, or if they create problems. I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that, at least for us, it's seen as a relatively as a relatively easy hurdle for people to do to make themselves a little bit safer, and then make our team members feel safer too. I would also say something that's really important here is that these mask ordinances, particularly in Arizona, are issued by cities and by counties or other jurisdictions. So you do have to pay attention because there's differences. So if you're in Maricopa County, versus Tempe, they have mask orders that are a little bit different. And so I would make sure, if you can, try to find the order. I think a great place that we actually track down a lot of these orders are looking on Twitter, which sounds funny, but that's where we find a lot of these mask ordinances announced. And so the other thing I would just mention on this, and this is a very important one to consider, is that how the mask or face covering ordinances are enforced varies by jurisdiction. So you should know your expectations as a retailer as to what you are supposed to do in terms of enforcement. So for instance, the City of Phoenix order is enforced. It's basically left up for the public to enforce, right? You're just supposed to wear your face covering. If a police officer happens to encounter you not wearing a face covering, they suggest that you do so. And then I think after probably several warnings, they might issue a civil citation. But it's not the responsibility of the retailer to ensure that people are wearing face coverings. So if someone steps foot in your store and they're not wearing a face covering, again, it's up to you in the City of Phoenix whether or not you want to mandate that they're wearing a face covering in your store. But again, it is not incumbent upon you to say, sir, you are not allowed to step foot in our store without a face covering based on the law. That's a little bit different in Tempe, for instance. Tempe's order requires retailers to enforce. It requires all businesses to enforce mask wearing. How that works in practice, I think, really depends on the retailer, depends on the customer, depends on kind of the situation, right? There are a lot of exemptions for masks for people who are able to go out without wearing face covering, medical exemptions, religious exemptions, and so forth. I will tell you from a Target perspective, particularly in a state like Arizona, where there's a little bit of different perspectives on face coverings, that we will gently remind our guests when they step foot in a store, if they're not wearing a face covering, that they should be wearing a face covering. And if it's a big issue, if they make it a big issue, then really we just let it go. If it blows up and becomes a big issue and people feel unsafe, then we will call, the police. But I will say largely, for us, it's not worth getting in an altercation. And, you may have seen on the news, not just Target, but several other, Home Depot and Walmart and others who have tried to enforce some of the face covering ordinances. Their team members have gotten in pretty bad spot. So again, it's about protecting the team. And so we don't want them to have to enforce. So that's on the face coverings. On the personal protective equipment, this could be things like if you can do it, like a plexiglass barrier between, a checkout person, customer, gloves and those sorts of things. So the degree that you're able to provide those, I think for your team and, is really helpful. This is an example of a sign that we use in various locations across the United States. I will tell you though, we have changed this sign a little bit, particularly in Arizona. I think, frankly, this sign is a little bit curt, right? It's our new sign, which you would see up on your local Target store, hopefully by today, hopefully by yesterday, actually, is that there's a couple more pleases and thank yous and just, trying to soften up the language a little bit. So again, you have to think about your customers and how they feel. And so, but this is an example of a sign that we use on the front of our stores. I think if you look on the coronavirus website that Governor Ducey and the health department has put together, they have resources as well. So they have some signage and some things like that too. So I think there's a mask sign. And I know that a lot of the municipalities also, so Maricopa County, the city of Phoenix, they also have signs, templates that you can use for face coverings. So you can use those resources. And then the last one on the SAFE acronym is enhanced cleaning protocols and checklists, including social distancing protocols, including creative ways that people should follow the guidelines. I've seen some interesting things both here and abroad that are kind of funny ways to get people to kind of stay apart. Right. So I think the Phoenix Zoo is doing one where they have it's like stay hippopotamus away from another person. So things like that, which are kind of funny, I think work very well. For Target, we have the decals that are on the floor, and then we also do the decals that are on the floor, and then sometimes depending on the size of the store, we might have one directional aisles to try to keep people kind of moving in one direction to make it a little bit easier for people to navigate a store without encountering other people. And then, think broadly about returns and exchanges and how you can adapt these policies, make those things clear on, your Facebook page or your website. I think that's really valuable for people to understand that, okay, these are a little bit of uncertain times. If all sales are final, then all sales are final, right? Or, if you're not going to accept returns and exchanges for a certain time period, that's policies that you can obviously adopt and just make sure to communicate those to the consumer. I will tell you for Target, we stopped taking returns for a short period, but we extended the return policy equal to the time we stopped taking returns. So for instance, if we stopped taking returns for 60 days on certain items, then you'd have 60 additional days to return things. And then one of the other things, and I think we're still grappling with this a little bit, and I think, for clothing retailers in particular, or for retailers that are where you've got a lot of people touching a lot of things, trying on clothes, those sorts of things. So for the most part, I think all of our changing rooms are still closed, and so people aren't able to try on the clothes and then put them back on the shelf. We have, and I will tell you, we've had lots of different discussions. I think there are some retailers that are, and there's actually some states, and I think Washington State is one of these states that requires you to hold, if something is returned or if something is tried on in the fitting room, you have to hold it for 24 hours. I don't know, like kind of a separate pile or something, and then you can put it back out. So, you think about kind of how to operationalize those things for returns and exchanges and fitting rooms and those sorts of things. So that's a fun, interesting one to navigate for sure. This is an example, and again, in the retail guide itself, there are several pages of this, which is basically a staff cleaning checklist. This is what we expect our team members to do on set intervals, whether it's every hour or what have you. And so again, we at our locations, we have these, every employee is trained on this, but then we also have them in binders. And then a lot of times you'll see them actually printed out, our checklist printed out and posted at our check lanes or, in our bathrooms or what have you. So that, again, just kind of reiterating that culture of safety and ensuring that our team members are, are cleaning everything. This is probably my favorite part of the guide. And so I encourage you, after we're done here, if you're looking at it now, to look through the social distancing playbook. And this is a really neat part of the retail guide because it gives you examples of like where you can station, a person. Let's say you're, a medium-sized retailer. It teaches, it can like, it has details on how to meter, how do you meter people, how do you calculate one person per every 6 square feet, just other things that, may seem common sense and you go, oh, okay, actually that does make sense, right? So if you're doing interviews, don't do them in person if you can, or if you do them in person, maybe you do them outside. Maybe you do them outside under misters here in Arizona, at least for the time being. Staggering staff breaks, that sort of thing. I know at Target, you shouldn't see 2 team members stocking the same shelves in the same areas, which has certainly been a change for us. And so you have people kind of in staggered aisles. And so there's a lot of other great things in this social distancing playbook. I think like we've got even a couple store maps where it shows you, I thought I had put it in there, but I hadn't. A couple of store maps where you might be able to like, run the line kind of back through the store. So just a couple of interesting things that people could help operationalize from a social distancing perspective. And then, this is the last slide here, and it looks like we'll have plenty of time for questions if there are any. We've really seen our guests talk a lot about safety a lot, right? A lot of the complaints that we get, a lot of the feedback that we get now are really all safety related, right? So for the most part, people are saying, you know what? I went into your store in Scottsdale, and for some reason I didn't see them cleaning, the cash register, the keypad after every transaction, or the belt after every transaction. I don't really like that. We also get a lot of, hey, your team members were great today. They were obviously, they're obviously following social distancing protocols. We like what you did with the plexiglass partitions and those sorts of things. So I would say that, by and large, consumers really, really care now more than ever about safety. And I think our CEO said on a call the other day, it's, we worry a lot about experiential shopping, right? When you step foot into a retailer, that it's clean and open, and, you've got end caps that are stocked well, and you've got displays that are really pretty. Safety is the new experiential shopping, right? When someone steps foot into your store, they should feel like you are taking their safety seriously, and the safety of your team members seriously. And so when they leave the store, right, it's almost a binary feeling when they leave the store. They're saying, ugh, I didn't feel good in that store. Team members weren't wearing masks. Everyone was a little too close. I didn't see a lot of disinfectant everywhere. No hand sanitizer available. I just don't feel great. Or they're saying, listen, I really appreciate it. There were team members. There was one person, cleaning the door handles, or, one person wiping down, the cash register area after every customer. So again, part of that new experiential shopping is safety. And then the last thing I want to reiterate is safety. It can be your key point of differentiation. If an individual is choosing to go between two different retailers, right, they can think, well, I can get, this product, at Trader Joe's, or this product at Safeway. But a lot of people are thinking now, which one do I feel more comfortable in? Which one do I feel safety in? Which one do I feel that's taking my safety as taking my safety as a priority as a shopper? And so, if you're a retailer, you can really stand out by providing a really safe environment for your customers. And I think, that's a critical thing to remember, is that that safety can be a key point of differentiation between you and the retailer selling the same thing down the street. So with that, that's it for me. Now, Robert, so I don't know if you guys will distribute the Safe Retail Guide, the link to it. We have it in English and Spanish by email, or if people can just go to the website. I don't know what your...
So I posted in the chat box, so everybody in the chat box, I posted a link to the Resource Collective. I'm going to share my screen again. If you want to unshare yours, Kent, and I'll walk our way through.
Got it.
You can find it.
Stop share. Here we go. Okay.
All right.
Great.
So this is the Resource Collective page. So if you go to the main boot camp page and you scroll down, you'll find our view resources. So when you click that, it will take you to the Resource Collective. You go down to Target. You have the English and the Spanish versions. Click View Resource, and the Safe Guide will pop up. And I want to show everybody on this, so as you scroll through this, it goes through the same stuff that Ken covered, but then you can see right here is a printable page, and here's another printable page that you can see that there's no Target branding on here. It's designed so you can print this out for your business and post it for your business. So it's a great little tip. And throughout the whole, even in the access, they've got this one. If there's a retailer and you have purchase limits, they create this for you so you can print that out and help make it easier for your customers to see what they need to do. So this is, again, it's a great resource. You can find it on the Resource Collective. We're glad they created it for small businesses. So Ken, we do have one question in the Q&A. If you have any questions for Ken, please load them up in the Q&A. We still have about 10 minutes or so that we can go through the Q&A and answering those questions you have for him. It says, this is from David, are you finding Target introduces new policies to its stores based on changes in the market, such as insurance companies offering new products and services to cover a change in the way business is handled and carried out?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so I think I understand what that question is getting at, but we are adapting how we operate to the new environment. And so as policies, change, we are finding, new services and new things to adapt. New things to adapt our business to. One thing I will say that has changed dramatically since this pandemic has started is our store pickup and drive up and delivery. Um, and so to be completely honest, drive up wasn't a huge component of our business. It was a relatively small component that we had been testing in a lot of markets, that we'd rolled out all across the country, but it wasn't heavily utilized. But once we recognized the importance of drive up and store pickup during the pandemic, we kind of quickly put some resources into that. And so, for instance, over the past 2 months, our drive up business has been up about 275%. So we are changing the mix, and now we've actually had to resource our drive up a lot differently than we did maybe just 6 months ago, where we normally would have 1 or 2 team members that were working through kind of how to fulfill those drive up orders. And now we've got quite a few people that are running kind of a quasi mini distribution center almost in some of our stores, where people are out picking items and are out kind of and are kind of we've got a couple of runners that run them out to the cars and so on and so forth. So that's one thing that we have really adapted to in the current pandemic. Trying to think if there's any other things. I mean, just a couple of other things that we've done more generally is we have put more of a focus on essential items. And so for shoppers that are, coming in to do their essential item shopping, we've tried to make it easier to get some of those things, putting them on the end caps, putting them up at the point of sale. So, trying to get hand sanitizer or wipes or other things that you might need. So you see kind of a different product mix there. So yeah, thinking through, I'm just trying to think through if there are any other examples of things that we've changed significantly. Yeah, nothing else I can think of. That's an interesting question.
Again, we'll reach out. Anybody else have any questions? Ken, I like when you were wrapping up, you mentioned shoppers have, retail's always been about experiential shopping. If you look back in retail history, you had the big window displays that created that experience. People go in to check them out. And with COVID, you were talking about one of the experiences that people want to see is a safety. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, all those experiences are important, right? I mean, I think one thing that we, that is inevitable during a pandemic is that people are going to shop online more, and that becomes a more important component. I think ultimately, though, what that means is that to get people to stores, it still really has to be a great experience, which I think retailers are great at delivering, right? Customer service, kind of that hands-on touch. People like to come to stores for a couple reasons. If you're like my wife, you go to Target to get away from me and get quiet time from the toddler. And so you want to make it a welcome environment for them. But then other people go because, they want to touch and feel the products before they buy, and they want to see the fabric of, the shirt that they're going to purchase. And then there are some things that are just not great to buy online. In my view, jewelry is a great example of that, right? Like if I'm going to go buy, a necklace for my wife, and I go to, you just don't get the same impact online that you might get in a jeweler. And so to the degree that, you're already creating those great experiences for your customers, the layer on top of that is making it a safe, great experience, right? And so all of those displays, all of those things, and I don't mean displays like merchandise displays, I mean displays like symbolism of you're providing a clean environment, right? That someone I think said last week on a call I was on, that your customers will mimic your team members. And so if your team members are taking safety seriously, right, if they are wearing gloves or using hand sanitizer or wearing face coverings and they're staying 6 feet away, that customers will a lot of times adapt to that, right? They'll kind of they'll mimic what your team members are doing. And so from a point of view of, providing a safe shopping experience as part of that overall retail, this may sound crazy, but it might actually be making sure that customers can get in and get out within 15 minutes, right? I think again, not a scientist, let me put that disclaimer on, but I think a lot of the research is showing that the virus is spread with close contact indoors for 15 minutes or longer. So that may be kind of saying, listen, you are our best customer, the world's greatest customer, but we want to make sure that, we get you in, we get you what you need, and then we get you out of the door in a safe time. And so again, just kind of thinking through ways, and it's going to differ upon every retailer. For an example, when I used to run a small boating retailer, it was a relatively small store. So if I were running that store today, I would, at the front of the store, I would make sure that there was a team member, that we're keeping the number of people in the store to a reasonable amount where you're not, there's not 4 people in one aisle in a 3,000 square foot store. And that, there are, to the degree that you can, right, there's hand sanitizer in lots of different places in the store. There's, I was at a small store the other day where literally just at the front desk, not the front desk, at the deli counter, they had a disinfectant, right, and a towel on the top of the shelf, and the guy was just cleaning it all the time. And when people see that, it just makes them feel real comfortable. So you have to create that cleaning experience as part of your overall retail experience.
Another good question says, did Target collaborate with other peer companies like Walmart and others with regard to utilizing standardized type protocols to mitigate and manage COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will tell you the honest answer is no, at least initially. And so I think it just happened so quickly. And we all were kind of like, oh, what does this mean? If you remember, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, before it got really, really serious and we recognized the gravity of the situation, I remember we had a discussion, and I think, other retailers were in the same discussion, and it's kind of like, well, do our team members need to wear masks? And the CDC was saying masks are unnecessary, and we thought, well, okay, so masks are unnecessary, and now we know that information has changed, and that helping wear masks mitigates. So, if in a perfect world, before going in, I think we would have worked with some of our partner retailers to try to understand what we could do together. I will say that now we have learned a lot from other retailers, and I assume that other retailers like Walmart and Home Depot and others have taken information from us. As we got further along in the pandemic, when we started to get into kind of that mid to late April, early May, I think there was definitely a lot of information sharing, definitely a lot of, hey, how are you guys working through line metering? One of the things that we did coordinate on is figuring out how to enforce the face covering ordinances. And so working with our retail partners to say, okay, are you seeing, is this county actually fining you for not stopping customers coming into the store? And so there was a lot, but that's a great question. I think if you were to talk to any of our business folks in Minneapolis, and they would have said, boy, it would have been nice to have a formalized process that was fully vetted and coordinated with all of our retail partners. But yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question.
All right, Kent. Well, thank you very much for being on. Let's give you the last couple minutes to share your final closing thoughts and with the audience. And
yeah, no, again, thank you, so much for letting me be on. I will say, you can look me up on LinkedIn if you have any questions about the guide, or if there's anything else I can do, to help or connect you with anyone within Target that can be helpful. We're here and we're willing to share our learnings. I thank everyone for their time and really appreciate it. Really appreciate the opportunity, Robert. Thank you.
all right, thank you, Ken, for joining us today and sharing that. What Target's doing and those resources Target has created. We appreciate that very much. Just a reminder, tomorrow's session at 9 a.m. We're looking forward to it. Please join us and have a great day.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye.
you.